Sam would be here, but I didn't confirm.
He said he's not feeling well.
Oh, okay.
Oh, really?
I know Toshiba's not.
With our business of accepting a motion to approve our November minute meetings.
I can make that motion. Second.
Thank you. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, please note by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, same sign. The motion carries. Thank you very much. And I will note for the record that I did speak to both Toshiba and Ms. Caulfield. So I have a ton of text message notes for the end, Dr. Robinson, when we get started. I won't be looking personally at my phone. I will be looking at the comments from our board members who are sending their feedback who are not here. But with that said, I will turn it over to you to continue our end of the year highlights from our community partners that we already have. And it's good to see some of you I know in person.
Absolutely, and thank you, and welcome, and I'm glad we have our partners here today. So our desired outcomes for today is we want to share information on partnerships with local community organizations. We also want to be able to share information about our district family engagement initiative to support families of students with disabilities. And then at the end, we want to engage in planning for meetings within various communities. And so as we get started today, I would like to invite Rose Thompson, who is the executive director, Dawn DeSoto, who is the programs manager, and Corey McNeil, who is corporate and special projects. And they're going to give us some information with regards to Activate Good. So I would love for you guys to come up at this time. And I do have a clicker for you and have your PowerPoint loaded. And board members, I have a copy of the presentation that I would like to share with you so you can have both as they go through it.
Oh, it's a paper copy.
I'm a paper guy.
Paper people,
Yes, yes. Here you go.
I like a good paper copy myself.
Do you like that one? It's prettier than the one we brought. Well, I will just kick us off by saying thank you so much for having us here today. Excited to share where we're at with the Elevate Schools project. And I am Rose Thompson, the Executive Director of Activate Good. We exist to make getting involved easy. It is our vision that we all live in a world in which all people can realize and act on their power to improve their communities. And we do that through people-powered projects for good. We really like alliteration here at Activate Good too. I'm going to share a bit more about that with you shortly. So what we do is we invite everyone in our community to join us on a journey of learning, action, and community building so that we can all become positive agents of change throughout the triangle. Not on this slide, but we are an affiliate of Points of Light, which is a global network of volunteer centers that do similar work to Activate Good. We have 600 plus, as of this year, community partners and organizations that we serve. So those are 501c3, 501c4 nonprofits, and schools throughout the Greater Triangle. We serve 5 counties, and we also work with some charitable causes and government organizations to support their volunteer needs as well. As of this week, we have 63,000 plus communities, volunteers in our volunteer community. So those are users within our database who are signing up actively to serve. Those are adults and youth who can use our platform. We have made 150,000 plus volunteer connections since we've been tracking this metric since 2013. So throughout my time here at Activate Good. Now, a bit about this alliteration piece here. We do have a volunteer database that those users utilize in order to sign up for ongoing or committed volunteer roles that our community partners are posting on our site. We have youth and family programming. Dawn's going to share a bit more about that with you shortly. And we're going to go in depth today about the Elevate Schools project. It is an initiative that was launched 2.5 years ago. We do a lot to bolster corporate engagement throughout the Greater Triangle. So we have 100 plus companies that we work with in order to help them achieve their CSR goals. And we have days of service throughout the year that Dawn's also going to share a bit about shortly. And then we offer Learn and Serve projects. We tend to implement Learn and Serve into everything we do, so hoping to take our volunteers on a deeper level of participation so that they walk away that day feeling that they're taking part in a transformative project, and we want to move away from making volunteerism transactional. We hope that folks are doing more beyond checking the box. I thought it was important to share a little bit about our history with Wake County Public Schools because I recognize that some of you here may not be familiar with us at all. And this partnership may have come about later in your time here. But years ago, we did actually have a curriculum that some of your schools were teaching. So I just wanted to share that. I thought it was very interesting, and it was developed by some educators. So you can see some of the schools here that adopted that curriculum. We took that curriculum and we actually created a summer camp out of that curriculum. And later, that summer camp became a year-round service club. So we're going to share more about how our youth programs have also evolved. We do offer partnerships for student service, so any youth, anytime, can sign up on our website or reach out to us if they're working with their Key Club or they need to get those volunteer hours in throughout the year per their school's guidelines. So we do have an opportunity for matching students and their groups that they're a part of. We have had engagements with a variety of the schools, as you'll see here on this slide, but I can also tell you there are 40 plus schools that utilize our website to post their volunteer needs. You might remember that terrible pandemic and how Activate Good supported Wake County schools throughout that. We were able to mobilize the volunteers that handled the hotspot configuration and distribution, as well as the laptop distribution throughout the county. So we were able to mobilize hundreds of volunteers to support your needs throughout that time. And I mentioned, we do have this volunteer database. I wanted to share a snapshot of that so that you can see volunteers can go to our site and search by location, by cause, by date, by group size, etc. And Wake County Public Schools youth and their families can sign up independently. Now I'm going to turn it over to Corey to share about the Elevate Schools project, as she's done a lot of work to keep it going.
Hello, everyone. So, like I said, my name is Corey. I'm the Corporate and Special Projects Coordinator. So primarily, I do work with our corporate partnerships and groups. But as a lovely byproduct of that, I get to do the lion's share of our Elevate Schools project because many of our corporate partners are interested in helping and serving in our schools. So I feel really, really privileged that I get to work with this project. Elevate Schools, I started back in 2022. With the idea and just vision of community members, businesses, and groups coming around schools and elevating them. It's right in the name. So we knew that there were under-resourced communities in schools that often had less supportive PTAs or had trouble finding volunteer support. We have those connections, and that was really what we wanted to do, was just to come around and support those schools' unique needs through volunteerism. So what that looks like, some quick facts. So We started this with seed funding from the A.J. Fletcher Foundation, which we were able to dispense of very quickly. We have between 5 and 7 schools in each cohort, so we have 5 the first year, and then 6 the following, and 6 this year is our last year in this beginning phase of Elevate Schools. The partnerships last 1 year, so you're going to hear a little bit later about our community partnerships, and what Elevate Schools is really a deeper dive. So these schools receive very targeted support from Activate Good, and as well as continuing support after that year to our volunteer management system and our software. So what that looks like, this is kind of the partnership cycle. So near the end of the school year, we open up an application to all the Title I schools in Wake County. And I believe some of you have helped us with that and getting that word out to folks. We, as a small team, are only able to, like I said, take on a handful of schools, and we've been really excited to see those numbers of those schools grow each year. Last year, we had over 30 applications. We were able to take 6. So that happens in April and May, and then we do a deep dive needs assessment. This is about a 2-hour walkthrough with the school, learning all about them, and what we really want to do is go in and support the great work that's already happening, and again, just elevate that. We write a volunteer mobilization plan in partnership with the identified members at the school, and then we begin to work on that volunteer plan to connect them to resources in the community, and that's where that corporate partnership often comes in with us, where we have corporate partners that are reaching out with us, want to do good work in the community, and we're able to connect them to these wonderful schools. So again, that happens throughout that year, and after that 1-year partnership, they continue to work with us as a community partner and have access to our volunteer database and those volunteer numbers that Rose shared earlier. So these are the schools that we have, these wonderful schools that we have been able to partner with through here. I'm not going to read all of them. You all can read perfectly well. But I came in this program kind of in the middle of the 2023-2024 cohort. All right. And then we're obviously in the middle of the 2024-2025 cohort. All right. So I want to talk a little bit about the impacts that we've been able to do through these projects. So we have been able to mobilize to serve 17 schools now through those 3 years, with 29, this is actually just for this year, 29 school campus beautification projects. So I have some pictures in the next couple of slides that you'll see some of those projects. But that's just this year. Right? Was that this year? Yeah. So that includes things like landscaping, teacher lounge renovations, painting, murals, all kinds of stuff. I'll be able to highlight some of those later on. Community volunteers, over 2,000 folks. Again, that's just this year. Completed volunteer hours, and a value of over $300,000 in donated time, talent, and materials. And then over 8,000 supply kits donated. And again, I'm blanking on my numbers a little bit. This is full or just this year? I think this was full. Yeah.
That number's full.
That number is over the entire
Every student and every staff member
Yeah.
have received some type of kits.
Yeah. All right, so to me, I'm not a numbers person. I am much more a pictures person. So these are just a couple before and after schools: Powell Elementary, Southeast High, and I wasn't at this last school, so I can't remember which school. Creech, there we go. It says it on there, there you go. So just some examples of some of the larger scale projects we've been able to do through this partnership, and then some ongoing things. And things I just want to point out here, because for me this goes a lot further than just connecting corporate dollars to school needs. It's about some relationships that have been built. The couple of these projects, this was at Southeast Raleigh Magnet High, where students were able to come in and talk to these executive leaders from the corporation that was there. We're able to share and lead some workshops. Students and volunteer participants painted side by side. We have local small businesses like Mr. Handyman coming in, doing stuff. We work with other nonprofits for murals. So it really it really has become just a beautiful venue for building these relationships and some really wonderful storytelling within these schools. All right, so I've been, like I said, very privileged to be working on this for the last couple of years, and I'm really excited to see where it goes in 2025. So, like I mentioned, this was the pilot. We have definitely had some interest from other school districts, and we're just really excited to try to grow this program because we know that it's made a difference to some of these schools. And we're also starting to see corporations that want to come back and continue to invest in these schools. One of the goals we have coming up in this next year is to find venues for ways to build on those ongoing volunteer needs. So not just the big ones, but ways to connect these corporations with ongoing needs like shelving library books or ongoing landscaping needs, et cetera. So lots of different ways to get involved. As Rose has mentioned, we are a small team, and so we hope to be able to grow this program in the future, but we think there's a lot of fun places that it could go. Anything you guys want to add on that I might have missed?
We have reached a point in this program. In order to keep it, we have to build our capacity to activate good, and we are hopeful that we can add a team member to do that in the following year. While Corey does this, she also takes on all of our special events and other corporate projects that are happening for nonprofits. So it's reached a point where in order to keep it going, we've got to keep it growing too.
Wonderful. All right, I'm going to pass it on to Dawn to share about other ways that schools and kids can get involved with Activate Good.
My name is Dawn, and I'm the programs manager. So a few other ways that Activate Good also engages with our youth and families. We have our Activate Kids program, which is for families with children ages 5 to 10 years old. They get together for an opportunity about once a month, normally held on the weekends or days when schools are not in session. These volunteer opportunities are about 1 to 3 hours in length, and they are done with a model to where it's a learn and serve model to where they are coming in and they're learning as a family as to the impact that they're making with this project for this community partner and the difference that they're making as a family with this. And a great example is in the picture with the birdhouses. This was out at Crowder Park, I believe. And the kids were there and they learned about why do birds need birdhouses and what kind of birds use birdhouses and why do we need to build them and where are these going to be. So our coordinator at that event, she went through all things birdhouses with the kids, taught them all about it, and then they served together as a family and took this great picture and put up those birdhouses at this park and actually other parks in Wake County as well because we had so many that day. So it's a great way for families to get together and serve together and bring in those young volunteers and then help them grow from there into other areas. From there, we have our Youth Volunteer Corps. That's for ages 11 to 18. And it still goes back to the model of the Learn and Serve where the kids are learning about the areas that they're impacting, but they're taking more of a leadership role into it and really engaging in a peer-to-peer side of it. So we ask the parents to kind of step away from these opportunities and let these kids volunteer together and really build on their relationships as peers. These service projects are about 1 to 4 hours in length, again, held on the weekends, during the summer and during school breaks. We also, this past year, did a summer of service to where there was a week of activities. So every day during the week there was a different activity they could take part in for June, July, and August. So it was a summer
of service.
Summer of service.
Get their hours in during the summer instead of during the school year.
Exactly. It's a great way that that program has been going, but also the YVC group is also going to our Elevate schools and doing projects there. And we had one that actually won the YVC award this year for the best service project that we put together at Powell Elementary School where they built a music wall. And so those kids went out there with a skilled carpenter and helped build that wall, and they ended up winning the award for that one. We offer 4 days of service with Activate Good, and it's a time that we work with our community partners to bring either portable projects in for our event or just opportunities out for people to sign up for. So we have our Family Volunteer Day, which we just had at Marbles on the 23rd. We have Dignity Week and Martin Luther King Day, which is coming up, which is a week-long service. National Volunteer Week we have in April, and then our 9/11 Day of Service is our largest community event for projects that we put on in the Triangle, and that's held on September 11th. That one engages about 600 volunteers for our 9/11 event. So our community partnership, anybody is able to, anybody is able to be a community partner with us that is a school or 501c3, and they just go on and complete the community partner application, and they then have access to our volunteer database where they're able to post their volunteer needs. We currently work with a couple of 40 schools on the platform at this time that are able to go on and list their opportunities, and then also families have access to that to go ahead and sign up for those opportunities. Probably missing something on that one. To be a community partner, as I said, all you have to do is go online and go ahead and fill out the application. And we encourage all Wake County schools, whether it's part of Elevate Schools or just a school, they're able to be a community partner. And we'll go through a 30-minute Zoom to go through all the perks of being a community partner, and then also a tutorial about the Golden Platform of how to post your volunteer needs.
So that is us, and that is a snapshot of a lot of what we do. And we encourage you all to just share with your school families about Activate Good to get them more engaged in giving back to the communities, and then also to encourage your schools to partner with us so they can get their volunteer needs up on our platform. Again, we hope to keep the Elevate Schools project going. We don't know yet what it looks like for 2025, 2026, because this started as a 3-year initiative. So we are at that crossroads where capacity building is going to be key if we're going to keep it going at the rate that it's going. Corey mentioned 30 schools applied this year, and they were all eligible. It was very hard to choose the 6 that we selected this year. And the year prior, I can tell you, we had 15 apply. So we're seeing an uptick in just the number that want this. The word is spreading. They're seeing the STEM labs and the teacher lounge makeovers, which are my favorite project, and the community gardens and such, but it goes much deeper than that because our goal, as Corey said, for 2025 is to bring in more ongoing support to the schools we've already worked with. So we did develop sponsorships that companies can choose one of the 17 schools to support those ongoing needs for an entire year. 2 companies have already committed to sponsorships. So, we want to go deeper with those companies who are already working with us, that we've already connected to those schools, because that is ultimately the goal of this project, is to keep that community love coming back to these schools that need it the most right now. But I'd love to open up the floor for any questions that you all might have about our work.
Well, we've come a long way since the beginning.
Yes, we have.
I was having
You
to
were
send
there.
weekly emails trying to get people to apply, so I'm
You and
excited.
Roxy Cash were right there
Yes,
with
Roxy
me.
Cash and I, yes, we did. We were full in. And we've come a long way. I mean, and I think it's important for people to know, we were literally begging schools to engage. To 30 applicants speaks to your team's dedication, the capacity that you've built. That now you don't even have to ask me to do anything, so it's really good. And I'd be remiss if I didn't say, one of the things that we talked about very early on in this committee is how we engage volunteers, and you all were instrumental in changing how we approve volunteers in our schools because of the great work that you all were doing. So you moved us into the 21st century, maybe kicking and shoving, but we got there. So I appreciate
We are
the
good friends with Nelson Battle now.
I'm sure that is good. And actually, I appreciate it. I mean, he was amazing when he came to share with us how things are in place now. So I appreciate your patience with us till we got there, is for sure. I did have a question. you all did a video. Did you all use, so I'm just bringing that up as someone who understands nonprofit. It seems like that's a good video for funding opportunities for you all, because we filmed parts of it at Creech Road where we were able to get some of the feedback from the outcomes from teachers of what it means just to have a space that's theirs, that is beautiful, that they felt cared for by the team that you all brought into Creech Road. So I just lift that up for everyone to know that you all also put a lot of work into how do we continue this work. So definitely I feel grateful and thankful for the work that you all have done and your commitment of making our schools still feel loved, even for those schools who didn't have PTAs to begin with. So,
And I'd be remiss if I didn't say that they've made us feel loved too. We are literally a part of all of these school families, and they've given us shirts like, here, you're part of the family now. And, you know,
They've been wonderful partners.
just
I mean,
wonderful.
truly partners.
Just wonderful
yeah.
to work with. So when we're a part of this, our team's hearts are really in it to see those murals go up on those blank walls, or to see murals that desperately need new paint, or to, you know, put in those STEM labs and those community gardens. It's just been very moving for my team as well to be a part of it. So we are doing all that we can to keep it going.
questions, comments from the rest of you about the work they're doing? Ms. Evans?
Just a comment. My son is 27, so this has been a minute, but it was so difficult to find groups that would take teenagers as volunteers when he was in high school. It was just such a challenge outside of like Scouts. So one thing I really love about your organization is that you do have a very full, robust program for teenage volunteers, which I think is so important.
We have done our best to create a pipeline, and then the last year, we launched Activate Kids and the Youth Volunteer Corps. We're the first affiliate of the Youth Volunteer Corps in the state of North Carolina. It's actually a nationwide organization.
So thank you for that.
Thank you. And we figured out how to get volunteers that were young people in our schools, which we also didn't have a process for. Thanks for bringing that up.
We'd love to build up some school partnerships on the flip side too, so that when students are seeking volunteer opportunities, Activate Good would be one of the first places they go to for that support. So we do have some school partnerships, some schools, charter schools and such, that have come to us every year, like they send 100+ kids to our 9/11 day service, or they're sharing out our summer of service, as Dawn shared. It's a great way for youth to get those hours in that they need.
So, Ms. Thompson, I too want to thank you for your time here today. And you shared all the information with regards to the support you're providing to our schools. Do you have any specific ask of the board? And so we always ask, you guys to support our schools, but I think there was a conversation where you wanted to share some ideas with them as well.
Yes, we know you have a huge network and reach, so anything you can do to promote ways that companies can support this initiative in order to keep it going, because we are, at this point, 100% reliant on companies to support these projects. Corey mentioned seed funding from the A.J. Fletcher Foundation, and again, that was gone very quickly within the first year because it funded a few of those transformative projects. Then it was up to Activate Good to find that $342,000 number she noted. Those were resources coming in and going directly back into the community. So, we just love your support in spreading the word, and spreading the word to your students and faculties that Activate Good exists as a pipeline for volunteerism, and B, a way to support their schools. In speaking with Brooksy, she said, what else do y'all need? And I was like, well, we need a fleet of ladders, we need buses. We're no stranger to U-Haul, we rent them all the time, and we need space just for these things. We have hopes and dreams for a space of our own, a tool bank, if you will. Our warehouse is full of ladders and sledgehammers and things that are needed in order to make these projects happen. So just at the end of the day, it comes down to funding. Funding will support our capacity. Funding will support future projects.
Sarah, did you raise your hand at the end or not?
I did.
Okay.
Well, first, I just wanted to echo, I just remember Ms. Cash and Ms. Johnson-Hostler really pushing for their schools and believing in this and seeing what was possible in their communities where they don't always have PTAs that can help out in the same capacity as other groups. But one thing, since we're here and since we're talking about how do you reach out into the community, one of the things that I've been doing in my BAC is the first 10 minutes of the BAC is having someone speak. I've had Safe Routes to School, Note in the Pocket come and just because I have a lot of families that are new to the area, know what's out there and what opportunities exist for themselves to partner where they fit. And I have a March 24th meeting where I have nobody scheduled yet, so I'd love for you guys to come.
Can I ask what a BAC is?
So we have, it's our Board Advisory Council, and so if you remember, like, can I say CACs in Raleigh without, but it's similar,
Yes, you
like,
can.
community advisory. So it's folks from every school, a parent and a principal or AP liaison. So getting the administrators to know what's available, and then PTA families to know what's available, and then it kind of grows from there. So a PTA could invite you out to, we need more opportunities for our teams, or our business alliance has something. So maybe that's one way, and I'll email you, but I just wanted to put it out there. So
We
you
would
didn't
love that.
leave
Any
here
opportunity
there
to
was
speak
nothing.
and spread the word, we certainly will honor that. So, and as of now, that date's perfectly fine with us.
That's why I said
Our
March.
project's got dates.
Patrick?
I'll just chime in. I'm the successor for Ms. Cash, so and I've seen some of the wonderful results at the school. So I have the same idea, inviting you guys to the BAC meeting in the next 2 months from now.
We'd love that.
Questions or comments? Well, thank you, Dr. Robinson, for allowing them to make their ask. We always say, what do you need from us? But you don't know that we have space, but trust me, the people who can make those decisions are listening. So you have not because you asked not, so thanks for putting your request out there. And
Anything
again,
to reduce our overhead and keep this program going, that's the goal. Thank you.
spoken like a true nonprofit. So, thank you all very much.
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for your time. Thank you. So during our last meeting, we were able to hear information about some of the things that we're doing within the district that really impact family and community engagement. And specifically, you heard from Title I with regard to Dr. Burton. So this afternoon, you're going to hear from Mr. Page, and he's going to talk about the work that is being done from the special education services perspective that really involve family and community engagement. So at this time, I say welcome, and I turn it over to Mr. Page that will be able to provide more information and insight.
Good afternoon, everyone. I would like to thank Dr. Robertson for inviting me and having a seat at the table this afternoon to share some of the great work that we're doing in the special education department to support our families that have students with disabilities. So many of you have reached out to our team and or through Dr. Taylor or one of the chiefs, and surprisingly enough, you've gotten a response back from either myself or members of my team, or you might have gotten a call or email back from that parent that said, hey, someone from special education has reached out to me and they are supporting the questions that I have. Well, that team is us, and we are the Family Community Connections team, and we're a team of 2 individuals. I have 2 senior administrators who support not only the calls that come into our district, but also the emails through Let's Talk, as well as any additional emails that our district staff may send us to support our families that have students with disabilities. So today I'm going to share a little bit with you around our mission. Our mission of Family and Community Connections is to inform and empower our parents. And one of the key elements and ingredients in that is helping our parents navigate through the special education system, as well as connecting through our community agencies and fostering through our schools. And so one of the key things that we also do on this team is building relationships and how we can facilitate and collaborate a better partnership with our schools as well as with those families. So many of you may not be aware, but Wake County is a very popular place, right? And we have, on a day-to-day basis, anywhere from 50 to 62 people that are moving into our district. So that says a lot about how popular and how people are viewing our district as well as our county. And with that comes a lot of questions. And so on average, for this quarter alone, our department has received anywhere from about 1,200 contacts with families, whether that's through via email, face-to-face contact, through Let's Talk, or well as families coming to our building. So you say that with, how do we support those families here through that team? And so knowing that the amount of families and the level of support, our team quite often is the first team that many of our families hear a voice from. They're the first team that many of our families that have students with disabilities call and ask questions about the programming that we have, and as well as the resources that we have readily available to support these students. With that, I'm going to share some district initiatives that our team has been developing and working on and supporting. So one of the things that our team does is that we ensure that parents' concerns are addressed with special education leadership. So many times and quite often, if families have questions, they may be frustrated with the supports they're receiving, or they just may not understand the IEP process. Our team, as well as our senior leadership team, will take those questions and we analyze those questions, as well as reach out to different resources to determine how we can best support those families. Another key indicator that our district does, or our department does, is around relocation. And as I touched on earlier, the number of families that move into our area, again, on average, we're looking at 50 to 62 families that move here to Wake County. And so a lot of our families have questions around, what does relocation look like? What is my son or daughter going to receive when they move into this district? A lot of times we have families that ask specifics around schools. You know, what does the programs look like in those schools? And that's our team that support those families as well. So a lot of times we will go out to the school and meet those families. We'll walk them through the IEP process. We also will be a support system, as well as to support the family and the school in making sure that there's a smooth transition. And for those of you that have not been aware of our team, you can find our team information on our website. If you go to the Wake County Public School System website and to our special education services, you will find the Family and Community Connections team that houses our contact information. And I advise you to please share that information with families as you come in contact with them, that they may have questions that we would be able to support. One of the other district initiatives for our team is developing educational resources for our families. With that is parenting information sessions. And so we are currently in the process of pushing out family sessions to support families. One of the key developments that my team is currently working on is, and I don't mean to jump ahead, but this upcoming work is around 5-minute clippets of videos that families will be able to go to our website and find information around our relocation process, as well as other IEP basic information to help support some of their guidance as they are navigating our system. Some of the great upcoming work that our team is currently working towards, as I shared a few minutes ago, is some of the 5-minute informational videos, but also is increasing community awareness and outreach. One of the charges that I took upon myself when first coming on this team as senior director was looking at the data to look at some of the areas within our district where we were not receiving many calls from. And as we began to look at some of that data, the story began to tell us that why aren't some of these schools and families reaching out? Is it that they are not aware, or is it they don't know that the resource is available, or don't know what questions to ask? And so our past 2 years, we have targeted some of those areas, and we have marketed towards being very visible in their school functions, such as some of their family engagement nights, so that we can be a face there and also be visible to families with kids with disabilities, so that they are aware of our resources. And lastly, some of the upcoming work that we have is developing alternative special education family engagement sessions, as I share with you. And we feel like that is important to help educate our families, but also to build that bridge and understanding around what resources that we have that are readily available support their students, so that their students can ultimately be successful within our district. And having that said, that's all I have to share.
Right. Questions? Dr.
Thank you so much. As a father of a child with special needs, it was one of those things where it came with a lot of trepidation. The transition to kindergarten and understanding how to navigate the system. And so, yeah, I think the community outreach is something that is vital to kind of help with some of the fears and and just the uncertainties. So that's it. Thank you for doing that.
So, Dr. Taylor, I think this was before you were here, but there had been discussions about having a special education BAC made up of parents with children in this community. And I think that was paused because, coming out of the pandemic. And I just, I don't want to put you on the spot today to be like, what's happening with that, but rather just, I hope that we are still considering that, because I know I've heard frustrations from families that that they're not listened to in more of a global way, not specifically to their child at their school with their teacher, but just, so I think that desire to be engaged at more of a district level is there, and they have such a unique perspective and voice with these, very special children. So I just hope, I'll just offer that I hope that's something that we're still considering, or something similar to that.
So what I hear you, and I think what you're speaking of is the special education advisory, parent advisory.
Right, yes.
And that currently, we had been looking at structures to implement that and push that forward. As we are looking at our transition within our department, that work is currently being visited. However, it definitely has not gone unknown, as far as it's something that we are definitely looking at.
Great, thank you.
And what I'll say is that you all obviously get some information during the retreat about the restructuring, but these are some of the things that I've recognized that with the restructuring, we can now really section this work to where there's a greater concentration in each one of those areas. What we recognize is that we have one unit that deals with 22,000 students. I mean, that's larger than most districts in the state. Mm-hmm. So what we now see is this opportunity to regionalize the work is going to give the department greater connection with a smaller number of schools. And certainly we can be able to engage on things like the Parent Advisory Council. So that was not something I was aware of, but I do particularly like the effort that they put towards where they know they don't have a lot of parent contact, and it really does mean that there's a need. I think all of our experience with EC parents is they either are highly engaged or not engaged at all. And so we want to make sure that we connect with those few. But we feel really good about what this reorganization is going to be like, and we hope to touch all of these areas to make sure there are not any gaps that are there. So, great work.
Thank you. And along those lines, how do we, as a former special education teacher for the district, how do we empower those SPED teachers to funnel those families into some of these mechanisms that we're going to be using? So I guess that's a plug to say, make sure that we're empowering special education teachers when they have those annual review meetings or those as an avenue to get families engaged at a higher level.
That's a great comment. And at our last board advisory council there with Ms. Toshiba Rice, that was one of the things that we shared with her is around ensuring that one of the processes to put in place is when families are having IEP meetings, they are able to present our information there at the table so that families, whenever they walk away from that IEP meeting and they have questions, or they can reach out. So very valid point.
So, Mr. Swanson, I'll add to that one of the things that we recognize is that training is a very big piece of what has to happen. And so we know we have a lot of initially licensed or even provisionally licensed EC teachers, and they're just trying to learn the process of how to deliver services. We recognize that many administrators don't have that EC background, so they've got to be able to ask the right kind of questions when they're at an IEP meeting. And so in all instances, we're going to have situations where we haven't done something. You know, there's mediation where the department is involved, DPI. And so everything in EC is almost absolute. We either do it or we don't. And if we're not doing it, somebody has to be there to monitor to make sure this is the service that we haven't provided. We've got to do that. And that's part of a lot of what you see when issues come to the district, come to this table to you all as board members, that we just haven't followed up. And so we know that the professional development for teachers, administrators, and even the district office is a big part of not only a reorganization, but what we've got to do when that framework has been put into place. So we can have the right play, but if we don't have the people to run it, it's not going to make a difference. I know I'm talking football.
I think, to follow up, one of the questions that I asked you all when I met, and I gave out all the brochures, and you all had little swag, I don't know if you still have swag, but I didn't know that you all existed in the way that you just described. And so I guess that's still my follow-up question of why you're here today. But how do we ensure that community members know that this is an option for them to bring you in? I mean, I think I brought this up when I met with you all, even early childhood providers who will have kids transitioning into our district. I think for me, the gap was, I was on this board, I didn't know you all could do this work and you existed, and so I'm sure parents who are bringing kids into our district also don't know that. And again, I can only speak for myself, the number of emails that we get regarding Spec Ed, we were referring them to your department without knowing that you had this whole community engagement piece that could have probably bridged some of those gaps in communities before.
And you're right. That just speaks to the level of marketing we need to do as far as level setting and being able to share our information throughout the district. So that is an area that definitely.
And I know you're a small and mighty team, so I'm not, that's still here.
I remember going to a transition fair
Yes.
Years ago, so I mean, it was very helpful.
And are there things that, I mean, I asked you you and your team when I met with you all, are there things that you want the board to know or to hear from you all that we could be better conduits of sharing information, whether it's to community or to you all?
I think it would be very helpful, some of the things that you guys already have in place as far as making sure families are aware of we are a resource. That would be very helpful because quite honestly, when families feel supported, that alleviates emails you all receive, calls he receives, and it makes everyone else's job a lot easier, right? So just,
Sounds like he knows our email.
I know him. But the awareness, if you could just make that awareness as you are visiting your schools, as you're having your board advisory council meetings, please feel free to reach out to us and invite us so that we can be a part of that as well as your schools. We are in constant contact with them, but if there's events that they are having, please have them reach out to us so that we can participate in those events, again, to make that awareness for our families.
No, I did not have that on my list. That's a great idea. All the events our schools have, you all could be a resource there as well. So thank you for lifting that up as well. Now your only ask of us? That's an easy one. You just told us to spread the word.
I'm doing it right now.
Good answer, Dr. Egan.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Well, thank you for the work that you do. And again, once I knew that you all existed in the scope of your work, it definitely changed my response to all of my emails. So again, I know that you have a small and mighty team, so I appreciate the work that you all are doing and your willingness to try to figure out how to, at least I would say, start with our BACs as a starting point. They generally don't overlap, but we try really hard to make sure they do. So that's a good place for us to start. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Really appreciate it. All right, thank you. All righty, you ready for the big transition?
I think we are, and for those of you who came a little later, weren't listening in, both Ms. Caulfield and Ms. Rice had a lot of feedback for this session, and neither of them are here, so I have some feedback from them that they sent me today. As you noted on the agenda, and we'll remember from the beginning, part of this conversation with community engagement was what's our next step? How do we plan for community, for making this a part of the community? And so, thank you very much. Always prepared, I should have known. So part of this next transition is really your feedback on how you'd like to see it, ideas, so that when the next chair takes this off next year, for the next school year, that this committee will be ready to determine how it moves itself forward. But also this gives the opportunity for the community to hear that when we said we were going to make ourselves accessible, that we truly did mean that. And so I feel like we're at that place to do that. And one of the things that Ms. Caulfield added, so I'm going to add it at this meeting, is she also requested that when we are just meeting as a committee, that it would be helpful to add a section to talk about anything that's happening in community. And so I'm putting out there for leadership and Dr. Robinson to think about how you create that structure so that if it's not an agenda item, because things do just pop up in our emails, when it's related to community, how do you build it into an agenda for this committee so that board members are able to share and talk about what's happening in community. And I'll use an example Ms. Caulfield has used before. In her district, they have a very large community health fair. And so one of the conversations we haven't had is, and again, as I've thanked Dr. Sturvitt multiple times for being almost everywhere I've been in community, which is amazing. I'm not sure how you've done it, but you've done it well. But how do we make the staff and or committee members be a part of those community events so that the community knows, yes, the school district is willing. So if it's mental health, how does this committee decide this list of things? So let's use mental health, child care events, workforce events that are in our community. How will this committee, and quite frankly the full board, know who do we contact on the staff to do that? So for instance, the reason why we brought Spec in is because I actually didn't know that they could come out to community events, not our BACs, because we can ask anybody, but I didn't know that was accessible to us. And so how do we begin to have those conversations so that the board does know, here are all the ways in which we already have people whose job is to be engaged in the community, and then how do we make them a part of community events that already exist? So that was not on our list, Dr. Robinson. That came up in my conversations with Ms. Caulfield. And I do think it's a valuable conversation to have, is how do we have those conversations to make sure board members are aware of the resources that already exist in the district? So that, Ms. Caulfield doesn't have to be the rep at a community mental health roundtable or event. Who should that be, and how does the board all have the same information?
Because otherwise, she's taking all the questions,
Right.
bringing them back to staff, getting the answers from staff, and then
And then trying to take them back.
Right.
Or there are community events that there's just nobody there. So some communities, if their board member doesn't know, doesn't even have that access point to
Got it.
us as a board. So I'll leave that with you all to sort through, but that was not on our list.
So do you want to move forward to talk about next steps? What is it
Yes.
going to look like and things of that nature? All right, so let's just touch on it just real quick. Before when we had the conversation, we talked about how can we really take community engagement into the community and be in various sites so that people who live in these different areas have access to this committee and what this committee is going to look like. And in doing so, we even talked about what would it look like if board meetings were going to be off-site in various locations as well. And so our charge today is really to capture information from the board, from the committee, of what you would like us to do moving forward. What options do you want us to create to bring back to you so that you guys can make an informed decision of what you feel as though is best moving forward. And so I would just love to open it up to conversations to really talk about what is it that you guys would want staff to do in preparation to maximize the opportunity for this committee to be involved with the community and in the community, and what is your vision of what you would like for that to look like. And so we don't have a protocol, we just really wanted to have just a conversation so that we can absorb and capture all the information that you guys want to provide, whether it's from A to Z. We want to take it down and then put it together and bring something back to you guys for consideration.
Well, if you don't mind, we've been in conversations for about a year with the chair, with different board members, all having different ideas about ways we could do more and get out in the community. And there's been different ways that we've envisioned it, like Dr. Robinson said. Some people thought, well, we could have the community engagement community or committee out in the community, but our committee meetings are usually scheduled during the day when it's very difficult for a lot of working people to attend. We saw when we had the last District 4 vacancy, the public hearing we had at Southeast Raleigh High School, and what incredible turnout we had. And I thought that was a really good example, right?
Superintendent search.
And for the superintendent search.
Yeah, that's
Thank
right.
you. That's what it was. Of all the speakers that came out on so many topics, all related to superintendent search, but because we were there, we were accessible, it was easier for people to get there and provide that input. And when you look at how big Wake County has become, it gets very hard to get all the way to the Crossroads office in Cary, right? We might be the center of the county by population, but in terms of time to get here and how hard it is for everyone else to get here, if we stay headquartered here, then being able to get out and around the community is really important. Now, in terms of a suggested schedule, I see up there every other month in a different board region. I believe that's a little ambitious, because just in our regular board schedule, for example, if we only typically meet once in July, if we typically might only meet once in December, then I think maybe 4 times a year rather than 6 times a year might be a little more practical. But other than that, it will be an opportunity to get around the county, get around the district to some places that normally don't see or hear from us, except when maybe we're opening a new school or when there's a crisis. So there were logistical challenges in terms of how we either stream or broadcast meetings, how we take minutes from meetings, that I know Superintendent Taylor has been working hard to provide solutions for. And I know that in talking with our committee chair, Dr. Robinson, I think you were ready to try to get one together this calendar year, but again, we had to slow it down a little bit. But really, as they said, this is really your chance to kind of talk about what you think it should look like. What sorts of things? Are they just public hearings? Are they regular board meetings? What about student performances? If we go out to Wake Forest or Garner, if we have the meeting in a school site, having students involved could be something great. If you don't think school sites are the appropriate venue, If you'd rather go to like a municipal town hall or a county building, there's other options too. There's no one right way to do it. But I just wanted to sort of give you that background of what we've been working on.
And Committee Chair, just so that you're aware, all of these agenda options were captured by various conversations that we've had with board members, or you guys have made comment in other meetings. So, and we wanted to make sure that we put it up there so that you guys would have it as a reminder of some of the things you've already shared.
I appreciated that you brought our reminders. Thank you. Ms. Evans?
So I'm not really sure what the public wants to see. I'm supportive of this. That's not a, I'm not deflecting or trying not to do it. But what I mean by that is, my initial thoughts is definitely quarterly, not every other month. I would appreciate a regular board meeting with whatever agenda is set up to happen regionally. And I think if our municipalities will work with us to use their town hall spaces, their government spaces versus a school, just because I believe, and I can be checked on this, but they're already set up with streaming, microphones, seating for the public. And some of our schools certainly have that, and I was very much a fan of what we did at Southeast Raleigh during the superintendent search. I thought that went really well. But I think for a regular board meeting with regular business, with a consent agenda and action items, et cetera, and then, very probably a closed session, I think that a municipal town hall or wherever they conduct their meetings is more conducive to that type of thing. And then surely there could be another way for us to figure out as a full board to go to some of our schools for other types of events or meetings. So it's more of a both and. I don't know, does that make sense, what I'm saying? But I think if we are really going to take our regular board meetings on the road, that it should be in a more formal space, if we can, get our municipalities to work with us on that.
And if I can add on that just real
Please.
quick. What about like we do our recognition meetings? where we
Student
don't-
recognition.
Right, we don't normally have a regular business agenda.
Right.
But if we were doing those regionally.
Sure.
It'd make it easier on those parents
Mm-hmm.
to have it in that kind of school setting.
The other thing I like about that too, I'm sorry if I may, is just that it really, it invites the community in to celebrate those students with us, right? Not just the students being recognized and their parents and families, but it communicates to the wider community, look at these kids, Thank you.
Dr.
Just another idea, whether we as board members could coordinate our individual BAC meetings to be like one of our BAC meetings being to be the big one that we would all attend, and to highlight something special about, or be a time to listen to the people in that district or whatever.
So you mean like us come to each other's?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So like, we have 4 BAC meetings in a year, so, dedicate one of them to one district, and we can all show up to it, and some,
So would you keep, that's interesting, because again, to your point, we don't necessarily, especially those of us who are not Western Wake adjacent, rarely do you all hear what's happening in our districts because we're not adjacent to Wake County.
Right.
So would you keep the same structure? I hadn't thought about this, so now, the other options we've thrown out, but this one, I'm trying to process how we would do it. Because I do think it's helpful for us. It gets to the point of hearing from other parts of our district.
Yeah. I don't know the structure of it, just, so much as the idea that we can all be able to hear from constituents in a different district, personally, just like what we did
Yeah.
in Southeast
'Cause
Raleigh.
We've done joint meetings before, but like the idea that I would go all the way to Garner
Right.
or Knightdale or something, whereas being in North Raleigh, being in Cary or Morrisville would tend to just be more
Right,
natural.
like those of us who are proximate have done
Yeah.
shared BACs.
But this is the first time
That's-
it's been considered. It's a,
Again, I personally believe anytime that we get out of our own district bubble is helpful, and it gets back to we are a school system, not a system of schools, and so it allows us to really be better informed decision makers across the district. So that's a new idea and a good one. Ms. Caulfield wanted me to lift up that I make sure that we share that it's called community engagement, and of course, reminder to Chris and I when we created this that it was about ensuring that we could engage the community. So she didn't say public comment, but I'm just going to lift up what ways would we ensure wherever we host it that the people attending would actually be able to engage with us in some way. So what would that look like?
So what I was going to say is, so we obviously can explore the bringing together of BACs. Now, that may be something that you need to do on a rolling basis, because you've got so many big, you may end up doing the big BAC meeting twice a year and just rotate it through. I think the other thing I would encourage you to think about is having a town hall type meeting.
Yep.
And you could either do that before one of the regional board meetings where they have an opportunity to engage specific topics that might be discussed, or it's something that you can decide to do in the big culmination of the BAC meeting. But if you do it as a big meeting and recognize that it will be a time before you cycle through everything.
All 9, yeah. I know this.
The town hall meeting, you can,
So I talked a little bit about that with a couple of staff too, because some staff remember the days when we did town halls where we were sitting at the front of the school and we were a firing squad for whatever. I personally think we all have to have tough skin to some degree. I think those were helpful. Because, and I will tell you, there wasn't a school town hall that I attended that was not packed, because we didn't host them all in Cary. So that was helpful too. So that's another option of community engagement too.
And the other thing I'll say is, when you conduct a town hall meeting, you have the opportunity to be able to build an agenda, and you know what's important to people and know what they're gonna ask about or talk about. And my experience has always been that when you confront it, give information about it, then they appreciate that.
That's right.
They're still going to ask questions, but the questions won't be as bad because you will have addressed a lot of what you know they're going to talk about. So, I think that will still be.
Ms. Rice has a new idea here. She likes, this is interesting, I love that we're getting new thoughts today. The idea of engagement satellite centers where parents will be able to come connect with the district without coming to Cary. So instead of schools, her thoughts are how do we utilize our Wake Tech or Human Services regional centers as a point of community engagement for the district. And then she also liked the idea, in addition to a large BAC, but that we all commit to attending at least one another's BAC meetings at least once.
Yeah,
So just
yeah.
rotating to see how other people do their BACs and learn. Mr. Swanson, then Dr. Robinson.
I think as we go throughout the community, I think it's important to level set and not set very unrealistic expectations, because when folks hear there's a community engagement committee, that the board is coming, their idea or interpretation of what that may be totally not aligned with what the purpose is. And so I think as we're going through building out in community, that we also let folks know what the role of this committee is and the role of staff, because the only thing we can do is take back those concerns to staff. It's not as if we can...
We can't make promises on the spot.
Exactly. Right. So I think that's important, because that's also a way how you lose trust in communities as well. So I just want us to be very intentional and mindful about what that may look like.
So if I can ask a question, we've looked at this and we've had a lot of conversation really about the board and the board's business. And again, I think specifically like board meetings being held out in other parts of the community. Some things some board members have talked to me about is how we improve our relationships with like different municipalities, with the county government. And it may not be a board meeting or a board function, but I know, like Mr. Swanson, the warning that you gave about expectations, you've done a lot of work working with other elected officials, putting together some regional meetings in Western Wake with some of the town and county officials. And I know, like Ms. Caulfield had talked about wanting to meet with folks from Wake Forest. And I mean, we've met with like different commissioners before to take them out to school sites. So to pivot just a little bit, I didn't know if you wanted to talk about some of your experience, pros and cons, with some of those regional meetings with other elected officials. And then, we work to try to get like joint meetings with county commissioners. But, sometimes the commission is much more into that, and sometimes it's more difficult. But are there other kinds of meetings, either officially or unofficially, with either different town or local governments, or even, we tried to get a meeting with the legislative delegations, or even neighboring school boards that you might be interested in?
It's a great idea. We can bring back, when I came on the board, Mr. Fletcher and I, we did not have a full quorum, so you should know that. But we actually did meet with every single municipality separately. And we spent more time as a full board when we were building and changing student assignment. And again, that was a priority for me because I was new to the board and we were doing major changes in Garner, and it really helped us. We had regular set meetings with their elected officials, and it was the board leadership and whoever the board member was, or members that represent the municipality, were very helpful. And again, it gets in front of some of the concerns with student assignment that the elected officials don't always know what their staff may be engaging with our staff. So I want to add that before Mr. Swanson talks about, is making sure we don't forget that staff have relationships with staff. That does not translate from elected to elected. And we've also had our superintendent and chief of staff actually present to our different town councils as a way to bridge those gaps too.
I think prior to the new election, it was easier to engage because you only had one particular senator, which was Senator Adcock, excuse me, I couldn't think of Gail's last name. And really it was things when we were all campaigning, myself and Commissioner Stallings, we're hearing from constituents of how do intergovernment work, and issues that were school issues may not have been school issues, may have been legislative issues, but they impact the school. And so one thing that we also do is Senator Adcock and I do have monthly or bi-monthly coffee where we can talk about various issues. And she takes that back to certain legislators. I'll take it back to typically Chris or Lindsay because our districts are neighboring. But the idea that we came up with those Western Wake Town Halls was just to get in front of some of the issues. We often knew the budget was a big one, and a lot of the things that we heard are state issues. And so let's have the state legislators talk about what they can and cannot do to address school funding. So those are things that we have had different pieces that, again, that we hear from our constituents that we want to get on top of, which I think we're going to do some more in the upcoming year, but just thinking through what those things look like. But the biggest thing to make those things such a success is we built relationships prior to getting elected. And then once we were elected, it was talking about what we can do to support one another. So I think building those relationships are key, and those issues are going to look completely different based on where your districts lie. So it works. I mean, we struggle with getting some of the municipalities in, but the great thing is we built with those town clerks, so therefore if we ever needed to use a space, the town clerks are able to help us maneuver. But it's all about those relationships.
So,
I do want to endorse the town hall idea. I think we should do those. And circling back to having a regular board meeting out at another location, I do want to acknowledge that even if the municipality and the clerk and everybody is very welcoming and accommodating, it's going to be an extra added layer of work for our staff. So I just want to acknowledge that. And so maybe even quarterly, and I'm really not trying to limit our exposure to the community and going other places. For us to make that effort, to make that drive, or whatever extra it is for us is one thing. Just to be mindful of what that's going to entail for our staff that actually have the, make the meeting actually work.
Ms. Caulfield also said that in her
yeah.
text to me as well.
Yeah.
I would primarily focus on, Ms. Caulfield's district. parts of your district, like Johnson Hostler and Weems, Dr. Eames' district, are those folks that may not necessarily be able to commute to Cary at a 5 o'clock board meeting or 5:30 board meeting. So, I mean, this may not be aligned with community engagement, but, you know, what if we look at pushing a meeting back, maybe once a quarter or something, to get more folks involved? Maybe a 5:30 board meeting is not conducive, maybe 6. When there's a short agenda, not saying it's, which is also hard to tell what's going to be a long agenda, short agenda, just to see so therefore we can show that we're trying to be a little bit more inclusive to working families.
I will say, 6 o'clock doesn't work either, and here's why. Because when we do our recognitions, you can tell the people coming from District 1, 2, and 3, it is hard. We are generally waiting on those students to start even for our second session, which starts at 6:30, especially from Cheryl's district. There is no way you can get through traffic in a timely manner. If your kid, because if you think about an elementary school student, some of them don't get out till 3:45. So there's no way they would ever miss traffic getting here if they leave their kid in school all day.
So I do like that point that Mr. Swanson raises in it, you know, Dr. Ng and Ms. Caulfield's districts, you know, that might satisfy that region of folks that it's really hard to get here. And for your district and Ms. Rice's district, you know, again, that might, you know, if we could be strategic about what the location is, you know, that might help that community group sort of share access to that particular meeting.
Yeah, no, I think you're right.
Yeah.
I mean, and I would definitely say, you all said great things, so I wouldn't rule out, I mean, I think you could do multiple to satisfy those needs. One of the things that Dr. Robinson has done is, we've had this conversation, some of the municipalities, to your earlier point, might have 15 seats. So
Right.
So that's why we actually listed schools as an option, because it would be really hard to have, even if our engagement was that they get to be there physically for our business meeting to do public comment, the space itself, some of them are really, they're very nice, and they have all of the equipment, but they're very small. So something to just think about in terms of choosing, because I do think you could then go back and look at a location between the municipalities that 1, 2, 3, and 4 would share to say who's larger that can actually hold capacity. So you could use that as a parameter.
Yeah, and maybe the solution is, we might find that it is easiest and necessary to have the board meetings here, but maybe on the Monday or the Wednesday, have the public comment somewhere else.
As more like a public hearing.
Yeah, in addition to here, you know, because I guess we always need to have it when we have a public meeting. I don't know.
Yeah, we have
But
some
do you see what I'm
flexibility.
saying?
That's
Yeah.
actually good. And we did, so you will remember this, we did public hearings when our board districts changed.
Yeah, that's right.
And we did do those outside of Cary. So you're right, a public hearing could work too.
Yeah, by law, we have to have public comment as part of a board meeting once a month for a minimum of, I think, 30 minutes. But
Once a month.
Yes,
as long as we have
we are one of the boards.
one of our remote meetings,
Yeah.
you know, we would have some flexibility. We could still have the same amount of public time each month, but one of it is part of, say, the regular meeting, and then another, if we have our distant meeting in like a Fuquay or a Wake Forest, that could just be the meeting, and then maybe the public hearing captures comment either the day before or the day after, or however.
Right.
Because in that case, if it's just the public comment piece, that might be more conducive to having it at a high school auditorium.
Yeah.
Or something versus the whole board meeting. I hear you about the size of different.
Only because that's
Yeah.
where we started, and then Clay was like, "Oh, I just went to one. There's like 20 seats here."
Right.
I was like, "Oh, that would be a
Yeah.
problem for us potentially."
Yeah.
Right? We wouldn't want to set ourselves up that there are 50 people. We're like, "Hey, sorry, we have to actually
Right.
put you in line."
So I had one question, if Committee Chair Johnson House, if you can expand on
Yes.
for me as I'm taking notes. You made reference to comments made by Board Member Rice that talked about engagement satellite centers, and you attached it to a board meeting. Can you just expand that, just so I can make sure that I definitely understand what that means?
So I won't put words in her mouth. However, I think what I took from this is very similar to the conversation we just had around Spec Ed is utilizing regional health centers or Wake Tech facilities that we already partner with to have us, Dr. Sturdivant, someone available in those places so people have questions, right? So do we create, what I would say in my world, when we call it a satellite center, is we'd say once a month on the fourth Tuesday, which I think Ms. Rice is probably responding because she's listening, once a month on the fourth Tuesday, we will have
Like
student
office
assignment,
hours.
office hours with student assignment and Spec Ed in the Eastern Regional Center in Zebulon.
Gotcha.
Yes, I was right. It's about the staff support, not the board. So, and office hours was the word I was looking for. Thank you, Ms. Evans. Because again, as I said, most of the time, community members don't even know that they have access to us because we are in Cary. And all of our departments, which the budget will be at the retreat and you all will deal with it all next year. But there's also not staffing to do all the things. Like, everybody's very kind, but answering the number of questions that come directly to staff and then we are sending our questions as well. Let's just be honest, staff is, their job is to filter that, but I do believe that it gives us a different level of accessibility as a district if we make space and community where people have access. Again, not my idea, but I absolutely love it. Because it speaks to what we hear from community is they feel like the district isn't accessible. It also builds a different level of trust. That community members are like, oh, I know on the fourth Tuesday at 1 o'clock, there'll be office hours for Wake County Public Schools. And we already know the top people. Student assignment, probably early childhood and Spec Ed.
And I appreciate the thought of being concerned about staff and questions, but I know that's part of the responsibility that we have. Community members feel as though they don't have that engagement. We want to do that. A lot of those questions they're going to already be familiar with. I've never run across any question that I haven't heard before or anticipate. So we'll certainly find a way to manage through that, but to give people the access that they need.
Ms. Mahavy isn't here, but when we did this at Herbert Akins recently, I mean, people were there. I mean, it was literally like a little WCPSS fair. There were, language services, Spec Ed, student assignment, and people were literally going to each of those. And it was actually interesting because we had never done that for student assignment. We generally just have a student assignment. So Glenn had a space in the library, but they were actually able to access other departments in WCPSS, and parents were actually utilizing that opportunity in that space.
And Dr. Taylor, he'll remember when we were at the Family Academy event in Morrisville, the South Asian community. There was a regular program of people presenting, but then it was almost like a fair, right? Because there's all these speaker and then a whole group on one table, speaker, a whole group another, and it really was like holding office hours.
So that was another I was going to make, that something like that I think would be wonderful because you kind of have a program that is going to hit on some topics that may be important to them. Something, kind of a road show.
Yeah. Again, I'm going to lift up, Mr. Swanson may not have been going there, but I don't want to lose the strand of the difference between the board's community engagement and the staff's community action team, because again, back to trust and community, we want to be very explicit in what's the staff role versus what the board's purpose, which you already had up there. But I do want to lift that up because some of us have received questions, and I imagine those questions will continue as that team gets fully underway as well. And again, I don't think I put too many words in your mouth, but I do think it's important that we create those distinctions in community as well.
I was thinking about the public comment like you were talking about. The question is, would it be kind of open-ended, like what we've had here, or is it more thematic or topical?
So there's different ways we could do that, right? Depending on when we held it and where we held it, there might be different emerging issues in that community. If we were to have held it in Apex, for example, this fall, even if it was open, a lot of it would have probably centered around student assignment. So where we have a public hearing on the budget, for example, we just have that as a public hearing. It's part of our regular board meeting. But if we did, like what the county commission does, we could hold budget meetings in different parts of the county, for example, and then get feedback. So you could do it on different topics, either a general topic, or if you knew something, like when you've had a crisis and we've gone into a community and had one about that issue, we've done that as well.
And you can also do similarly, I was thinking if you do public comment, even to Lynn's point, if you don't do it attached to a board meeting, our board agenda, people are watching mostly our policies, so you can do it similarly on agenda and off agenda, so people could come with themes of, hey, we know you're taking up the cell phone policy. We heard about it because it's going to be on the news, so they'll know, even if they're not listening to the meeting. So that might be, people can list when they do the sign-up that this is on topic to things that the board are currently working on or talking about or considering policy. And then to your point there, we always have off-topic, which we always open. So that's another way that you could do it if you do public comment, so that people know that they can talk about what we are discussing
Yeah.
for that month.
But it's not limited.
But it's not limited to
I
that.
wouldn't want it to be limited
I wouldn't
either.
either.
But that's the whole point, I think, in my mind, of going outside this building, is to give more opportunity, so, yeah.
And I would dare say the superintendent already has a strategy for how to do these well, as he did his original roundtables when he started. So I also don't want to lose that there's also the opportunity for that, because that allowed engagement, right? Public comment, town halls aren't really people engaging with the board. They're talking to us. We can answer questions, but it's not the same as an engagement as if you're moving people around in a roadshow style or a roundtable style, so that people actually are talking to board members. So I don't want to lose that as an important theme as well, is that this is an opportunity for people to actually hear back from the board member. Again, not that we can make promises, but again, as someone who lives and breathes and thinking about trauma, it's helpful for people to feel validated, even if we just say, we hear you, and, or we hear you, we'll take it back. But they don't often get that from us. Even now that we've moved our We Speak After, it still doesn't give, it's not engagement. We're just making a definitive comment versus an engagement, so people feel in relationship with us. Relationships matter.
Did you get everything from
Oh,
these two?
thank you. Thank you. I was doing so well.
It's okay.
Yes. I think we missed this one, but Ms. Rice went back to, if we do the relationship with staff, it takes away fear and intimidation of engagement when we help outside of an office building, especially for families from different cultures. Thank you.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
So I wanted to bring one thing back around now that we've had an opportunity to really get some big ideas out, and some new things that we haven't even been on our, just in our imaginings before. The challenge in all of this is how we do this with limited time and resources, so we're not just doubling our board meetings or taking full-time staff away from their full-time duties and giving them brand-new tasks. The goal isn't to really create a whole new set of board meetings, but rather how we can integrate this into that work or transform it, how we weave them together. And so I just want to be really clear also in terms of expectations. We don't want to ask you to now reserve every other Thursday of the week as well, to your Tuesdays or anything, but it's how we can take these goals and then put them into, your board duties.
And I definitely think, Dr. Robinson and I decided not to do a protocol so that people could all talk to each other. So that's why we didn't do a protocol. But protocol would generally have us kind of prioritizing, because I do think we've laid out a lot of great ideas. And I will go back to the number of times that you do that. I agree. Even if you do one town hall or a round table a year and you move a board meeting or whatever, I think it's sufficient that, for me, the real commitment before I leave this board with this committee was that we are committed to doing something that is outside of Cary so the community can feel connected to the board, which requires staff timing. So for me, that I would say is my priority to leave with you all, is that whatever is chosen, it allows real engagement with the community. So we're not just there to talk. So even if it's a board meeting, that you move there, and even if you move public comment to 6 o'clock, that you take a short break so that you can still talk to the community, because I don't want to lose the part of engaging directly with the community in whatever decision is made.
It's sort of maybe a meet and greet before the meeting,
Yep.
or just, yeah.
So just not losing that relationship part, so that it doesn't feel performative. Mr. Swanson.
So you could take that idea at the board, at our board meetings, when there's such a long break, of, folks who may want to leave afterwards, building that trust and whatnot. So I think if we're going to do it out in community, we have to do it here first too.
I think the people here would say we do that. We generally always let them come talk to us. And that's what made me think about, is I think about the breaks and people come up to our table. I want to make sure you don't lose that when you're in community, because you won't really afford it.
You had mentioned about the special recognition
Yeah.
meetings. I mean, could we regionalize the special recognitions to certain areas and have that first, and then afterwards have a time of public comment or something like that, since we're going to be there anyway, to have that.
And I like the idea, put it after the families, for some of the families, if they can't stay the whole time, let them have the kids' recognition first, but maybe like we have a meet and greet before it, have the recognition, and then allow the comment.
Yeah, because right now we're separating between the elementary and then the middle and high school. But if we can do, the whole spectrum in one region,
Yeah.
you're still...
It's fewer of each one, but
Yeah.
it's still
Yeah.
the same number.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then have a public comment after that.
I just think it'd be easier, like I said, if you're coming from a distant location, it should be easier to come to like one central site in your community. Yeah.
Dr. Russell, you were going to say something, sorry.
So what I would add is that the idea of doing 4 quarterly meetings as a board meeting, and identifying, I won't say a handful, but a few ways that we can engage with the public that we haven't done before. Town hall, round table, and really emphasizing the things that we're already doing. I think that will make a marked difference for the community. They will say that this board is absolutely doing the work to make sure they reach out, because they know that it's limited time. But if you did these things, I think it will be completely a new connection with the community. They would absolutely see what the board is doing. So I don't think we need to have 1 million meetings. They know that, because, as you said, time is going to be of the essence. But 4 quarterly with those other things in there, I think we'd be knocking across the fence.
Ms. Rice did have a question, and that is for you, Dr. Robinson, which I was going to answer, but I'll let you answer it now. She was curious around how you and I had talked about what a board meeting would look like at another location, and I'll let you share that since you had been to several municipalities.
It depends. One of the comments that you made was about spacing. So we went to one municipality that may have a great site, but it's limited seating, but they have everything that's set up. We went to another municipality in which they had everything set up, and it could sit approximately 100 people. It's not a lot of space in some of these municipalities to really engage in what we're talking about and discussing, but just so the board is aware, we've already reached out to a couple of schools that were really excited about having it at their particular building in their particular community with their neighboring schools, and almost doing it as in a perspective where you go into a school, you make sure that the elementary, middle, and high school where those kids go to, that whole community comes together and engages with the board. And so as I'm capturing the information and looking at everything that everybody shared, I understand the challenge. And so the guardrails that we will establish for ourselves would be try to integrate whatever proposals we want to bring to the board as information within the current structures that are already in place. And so if that is the ask and that is the will, staff, we will work on making sure that we bring that to you. But back to your point, it looks different in every region and in every perspective of what it could be. And that's been the complexity of the challenges that we have to really mitigate in order to make sure that we're providing a consistent structure and a consistent protocol that shows an equitable process for all.
So will you talk through a little bit around our conversations, just so they have an idea, which is, so just so you know, we started in the most eastern part of the county, Ms. Caulfield's district, because it is by far the furthest and most traffic. So you looked at the municipal sites, which were not going to be large enough to hold us, so you had moved to a school site. So can you walk us through kind of what you envision that would look like? And again, of course, the schools, 2 schools you met with were excited about hosting this.
Absolutely. So when we talk about going into a school site, just imagine being in an auditorium, and I know Committee Chair Johnson Hostas talked about a firing squad, but you would be in front on stage, chairs set up, I'm giving you a vision and a visual. And then we would have mics within the item, in the aisles, so that people can engage with you guys and doing things of that nature. One of the challenges that we talked about, we want to make sure that we're in compliance, was the perspective of will we be able to stream it. Whether we can stream it live or not, we talked about making sure that it was recorded, so after it is done and put together, it can be uploaded, so people can still see and understand what was taking place, but really having an opportunity for the community to be engaged. Another perspective that we talked about is more of the community roundtable-like discussions, and being in the media center or the cafeteria where the tables can be set up in a line where you can fit a lot of people. And when you come in, there will still be a mini stage set up for the board to sit on, overseeing the tables, and being able to really articulate and engage with the community from that lens and from that perspective as well. That setting may create a little bit more intimacy because it's a lot of touch points as opposed to people sitting in columns and rows in an auditorium. So there's many different ways that we can do it. And we're not even limited to those things. We even talked about, should we rent a space? And if we rent a space, that would allow for the setup. And as you know, we've done community roundtables throughout various parts of the district, so we already have contacts of what we can do, and some of those spaces were donated, so it wouldn't be an issue with cost when it comes to those type of things. So there's a lot of opportunities to do things differently.
Thank you. I think that looks like it answers Ms. Rice's point. She could tell that you and I already had many visions, so.
Right.
Thank you for sharing. Any other follow-up questions or comments? And thank you, Dr. Taylor, definitely for leaning into this.
Just to the open meetings piece, we are not required to stream, right? We're required to post it ahead of time, make it publicly available as far as people coming, but recording would be.
Yes, so legally, we're not required. It is important to know that one of the reasons the board decided to stream many years ago was to fulfill concerns about minutes. So we would need to make sure that that we were able to produce minutes quickly.
And so one of the things that Sasha and I have talked about is how you would stream a meeting, because it is not required, as you said, to do so. But we know that's an expectation. And so one of the things that we're going to be working towards is to make sure that we have the setup to where it's not an intrusive thing or difficult thing to be able to broadcast. So that means that once we have the setup, then we can literally take that to any location. And that will be the great thing about going into a school. As we said, many of the municipalities already have the capability of doing that, but if it's a small room, then that may not fit the need. But once we know we've checked that box and we can rely on that, then at that point, you can literally meet anywhere that you want. And the only thing that we want is to have a separate room like the workroom that we request to have a closed session meeting, because I'd hate to put everybody out there. Once we know we have that piece, we can literally land anywhere.
Any other feedback? Ms. Rice did have one comment, and that is her last thoughts were that she believes we should let you, it's you and Dr. Taylor, who I appreciate your investment. I hadn't even shared all these things with you. Of course, I had talked to you about, talking to Sasha about like how would we keep with our practices. So thank you and Sashi for working on that for us. But her thought was to let you all come back with an idea on what should our first pilot be. So that's Mrs. Rice's recommendation.
And, I think with the understanding that it is a change, and we might have to, lay up to it, right? Some modest moves, but going ahead and getting something done, and then seeing what works, what doesn't, and then building on that to build up to what we want.
Yeah, I think her words were pilot.
There you go.
And you will, Dr. Robinson, Dr. Taylor certainly will continue this conversation with leadership, but it feels like you have a lot of, and thanks everyone, including Ms. Caulfield and Ms. Rice, who sent me their feedback so that their voices could be heard. Again, two people very much so like me in the chair who just would not, I actually reached out to them separately because they both have given me so much feedback around what they wanted to see. I didn't want their voices to be absent from this conversation today.
Do you have a projected suspense date? When would you like this information to come back?
Now, I think you have to talk to your leadership about that.
We'll work
Your
with that
leadership
with
will
the
talk
general-
about that.
Because I know that also, like we've talked about safety and security and some
Right.
other issues coming up, so we'll work with the committee chairs on scheduling.
Sounds good.
I'll let your leadership take it from here, but hopefully you all felt that this was helpful and you've gotten what you needed and some notes. And again, thank you, Dr. Taylor, for leading into this as well.
We just only require that our state representative come back to be
Absolutely.
part of these sessions, right?
Absolutely. Front row, center. I have my questions ready.
Wait a minute now.
So, yes.
Dr. Sturtevant wanted to share something.
Yes.
So.
Yes, at the previous opportunity I had to share out, you all mentioned wanting smaller cards to be able to share the QR code, so I do have those. I'll offer them to those of you here and anyone else. I'll put them in the mailboxes.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate that.
Appreciate it. And I'm thinking maybe 2 for your lanyard and your wallet.
Yes. I appreciate the modesty of making sure we have this.
That big piece of paper not condensed.
Thank you.
I know. Well, for the record, I appreciate the smaller piece.
Yeah, this is great.
It's much easier for me to keep. So, and my wallet is where I'll put it. So again, thank you all very much for your engagement, both listening to the groups that we already have, and I will say to you what I said to two board members not here is, I hope the combination of hearing what's already in our district, the readiness of organizations of how they want to be engaged, Activate Good being the last group of who Ms. Cash and I spent a lot of time trying to build internal infrastructure for engagement that didn't exist, and as you heard Rose say, that has come a long way, and she's excited about where we are. That leaves you with, now how do we engage the community? Because hopefully all of us learned something that we didn't know that was already happening in the district. So much, this district is rich with resources, both inside and outside of the district, but not all 9 board members all have access to the same information. So hopefully this gave us some level setting to what resources are out there, and there are so many more who are waiting to come talk to you. And what I've said to them is 2 things. 1, please make sure your organization is in this database, and 2, when the board, if they can come to Cary, I've said to them, you can always come to public comment and check off agenda and share about your organization. So I've also encouraged them, if they feel like they still aren't being heard or seen by the district, that there will be alternate ways like moving or some type of meeting into the community. So hopefully this has met your expectations, Mr. Chair, for allowing me to pilot this committee. And I certainly look forward to all the greatness that will continue to come. I will say for sure, it is a great way to leave the board knowing that the things that led me here, I'm leaving knowing that the board is at a stable place to actually implement those things in our community. Building our community trust is, I think I scared the original committee I met with, because several of them walked out. They were like, you really don't believe the community trusts us? And I was like, no, I don't think the community trusts us. I was and am still the community, because it's the unknown. And so hopefully we've dispelled some of the mystery of who we are as a district, and you'll continue to do that in community. And thank you both and your entire team, Dr. Sturtevant, Dr. Alfred Keith, for listening to me sometimes flail. I'm an oral processor, and you all have been able to take it and make it work. So thank you very much. I look forward to it. Front row seat. Preferably on a, Thursday. Just FYI, Thursday night's better.
This is reserved for representative.
So we'll have a little bit of time before student achievement starts, so we will officially adjourn our community engagement meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you.